and welcome to Off the Fence. This is your go-to digital jumps programme, taking you from right now all the way through to the Cheltenham Festival. And we look back, we look forward, we cover all things jump racing. We don't leave any stone unturned. This is the only show you need to watch if you're an avid jumps fan. And before I go any further, don't forget to hit subscribe on the At The Races YouTube channel, because if you do that, you won't miss a single episode of Off the Fence. Without further ado, let's crack straight on, because it's been a huge weekend of jump racing on both sides of the Irish Sea, and we're going to go through it all with Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. How are you, Tony?
I'm pretty good, yeah. It was a Punchestown yesterday. Very enjoyable day, good crowd about, good feature race. It was an excellent weekend, all told.
Brilliant. And Barry, how are you? Mood good?
Mood is good, yeah. I was Punchestown as well yesterday, brilliant, and watched all the English stuff on Saturday. And between Sandown and Aintree, it was deadly, yeah.
Did you two meet up at Punchestown? That I wasn't invited to this day out, or?
Barry'd be moving in far higher echelons than me now. He wouldn't have time to be mixing with the ordinary folk.
I'm not sure about that, Tony. Tony lost my number, I think.
Now Barry's fully retired and on the gravy train. We won't see him for dust at those sort of bigger days, you know, Tony. But anyway, let's crack straight on, and we're going to stick with Punchestown and the John Durkan, where of course Allaho galloped to victory underneath Patrick Mullins, one of many in the race for the Willie Mullins camp. Now 5-2 favourite for the Ryanair, the race that he obviously bolted up in last year. Barry, let's start with you. How did you assess the race as a whole and the winner?
It was a tough race, and Allaho didn't help himself. He was jumping out to the left just marginally, but just doing enough he missed a few fences. He wasn't helping himself, whereas in the Ryanair he's going the opposite way, and going left is even a help rather than a hindrance. But it was a tough race for him, and obviously being his first one of the season, he got turned over in this race last year when he was well fancied. But first run, Willie seemed concerned afterwards that he had such a hard race, and you mightn't just see him out in the short term on the back of that. And I suppose that's a reflection of where trainers, are mindful of their first run and how important it is to get these racecourse gallops in, which you're testing the water for a horse and you're giving him a chance to build on it. This fella obviously needs his first run. I'm sure he'd improve for it, but it'll be a little bit of a setback in the short term. But it was a tough race. The Punchestown as a track itself, like if you were to start comparing it to Cheltenham, and you have the old course and the new course in Cheltenham, so the Ryanair being on the new course, which is a stiffer track, I think is a better test for Allaho, whereas Punchestown is maybe a little bit more comparable with the old course in Cheltenham, a sharper track, and I'd say happening a little bit too quick from around there. And for that reason, Asterion for Lange was the horse travelling best, jumping the third last, and both Brian Cooper felt he'd have won, and Patrick Mullins thought Brian had the edge on him as well.
Yeah, all very interesting that. And just in terms of those in behind, Tony, obviously Barry's covered the winner there pretty well, but there was some disappointments with Envoy Allen, Asteria Falange falling, Fakir Dudaries maybe didn't seem to perform to his best either. What were you taking out of it? What's your assessment of it?
Very strange race. I think the form could be quite questionable. You had two horses coming into it, Envoy Allen and Fakir Dudaries, who are coming off recent wins, and neither of them just turned up at all. Fakir Dudaries jumped the first badly, and his jumping was poor throughout. He's probably just not up to winning the best Irish Grade 1s. I think his two Grade 1s have come with asterisks. Sam Crowe would have beaten him in the Drinmore, and he beat what is a below par crop of English horses at the entry last year, albeit impressively. Envoy Allen, I just don't know what to say about him. He just looked like a horse, that looked like an ordinary horse in amongst the horses that were there. There was nothing that made him stand out. He just seemed to be beating on merit. The IHRB have a look at him, he's post-race normal, so I don't know what you do with him. One thing I would say about him is that in terms of the market, horses like him tend to still attract support though, even when maybe it's become obvious that there's something up or they're not what we thought they were. Like Sam Crowe, after his novice hurdle season, did continually go off short prices and get beaten. I expect the same with Envoy, especially I'd say they'll probably try to drop him in grade maybe next time. Maybe they won't try and drop him in grade, maybe they'll just go straight back to grade 1, but a little bit to prove. I'd agree with Barry, it looked a tough race. They really looked to be walking late. Like from 3 out, they were 6.5 seconds slower than Ferny Hollow in the following beginner's chase. Now, That race was over shorter, but even so, like, you're talking about Grade 1 horses against, maiden chasers. Obviously, Ferny's a bit better than that, but it's not a long way from 3 out in Punchestown for that kind of a time discrepancy. Says they were really slowing up late. And look, everything else that was involved when the 2 race fit horses were taken out of it were all Willie Mullins' seasonal debutants. Like how ready were they? Like, I think it's been a mixed bag in terms of his returners in the last few days. Some of them seem to be pretty fit, some of them not so much. So a little bit of a guessing game in terms of what the forms were. Asterion, yeah, I'd agree. I thought he would have won. I think the impact on Christmas is quite interesting. I think it probably weakens some of the Christmas racing because I don't think there's much chance of Envoy, Allen or Allaho going to the King George now. And I also think the 3 mile, the Savage Chase at Leopard, it looks like a race that's going to be quite thin, certainly compared to last year. You're going to have a Plutard. I think Dan Skelton said Protector Centre, but he's not going. Galvin's probably intent on going. And basically the Willie Mullins also runs from this race. So a Plutard's going to go, to me, is going to go off very, very short there, especially with his prior record at Leopardstown at Christmas.
So, just in terms of the one horse to take out of the race, would that be Asteria Phalange, despite all his flaws and his trickiness? Is that who you'd be taking out of this race, or would you be sticking with the winner, Tony?
No, I wouldn't like. I don't really like to take too many positives from any of them. Look, Asterion Phalange, wow. You get the sense that was his big opportunity, but he just keeps doing stupid stuff. Yeah, like the perfect setup. Punchestown, 2.5 miles, just like he had last season in the novice handicap chase. But he's done something wrong. Does he go back to Kempton? Does he go for those kind of races in January, February at Torles and at Goran? I don't know. I think this was his kind of perfect race. I take encouragement from Allaho in the sense that he got the job done. It was hard work. He's a horse that always seems to need a run. He really is a very poor record first time out. He's a horse that would easily seem to improve a stone or even 20 pounds on rating. So that's positive with him. But where are they going next with him? They're missing Christmas. Are they going to go back to those Grade 2s and carry a penalty? Are they going to go to Dublin Racing Festival and try 2 miles or 3 miles? It's wait and see. I'd say that I really want to see how he comes out of the race though.
Yeah, I think everyone does, and like you've touched upon, Willie after the race, it kind of seemed, in a way, despite the fact they've won, he definitely seemed sort of almost a touch disappointed just with how much effort he'd had to exert to win the race. Just one final point on this, Barry, before we move on, picking up on Envoy Allen, because of course he was the poster boy of National Hunt Racing, and then the switch of the yard last year for the reasons that we know about, and now he's ultimately been disappointing since. And just following on from what Tony said there, I mean, are we of the inclination now that maybe he wasn't as good as we thought he was, or has he regressed? And where does he go from now?
No, I would have thought he's regressed for whatever reason. You could put it down to the injury he picked up in Punchestown maybe, but I know I wasn't excited by what he did in Downryle. He beat, Cocoa Beach, and for his level as a speed horse, as a class horse, for Rachel to feel the need to give him a tap round the tail at the back of the last. I know if I rode Sprinter Sacra, who you would have compared Envoy Allen to last year as being in that kind of mould, if you gave him a smack at the back of the last in a first run of the season chase, he'd be gone. You wouldn't stop him for diamonds. So he didn't turn up in Downryle to the level that we saw last year. He didn't turn up in Punchestown to that level either. So whether he can get back there at some point remains to be seen. But the reasons being, whether it's the injury he picked up in Punchestown, I'm not sure. I couldn't put my finger on it, but he's not the horse he was.
No, I mean, you rode him, didn't I think we had this conversation last season that you had sat on him in Gordon's, is that right?
I did, I sat on him, and he was, Keith Donoghue had said to me, ride him quietly. Yeah, and he was real spontaneous. If you moved a muscle, he was just gone from underneath you. So he's an instant horse with an instant gear change that wasn't there on Sunday.
No, and it doesn't seem like it's been there for a little while. It'd be very interesting to see just how that John Durkan race pans out over the next few weeks and months, full stop really, with all those horses mentioned. Let's rattle on to another Mullins star, this time down in Cork in the Hilly Way with Energumene bolting up there. Barry, I was thoroughly impressed with this horse in Cork. Obviously, first time that we've seen him this season. I just thought his jumping, he's so fast, isn't he?
I was just marking down some notes to do this show, and I just put down poetry for this fella. He is electric. Everything he does. Notebook took him on. They went a real good gallop. Notebook died away, and he just kept floating. First run of the season. Oh, he's just class. He's gorgeous. He's so measured. He's so quick. He, to me, is what you want in a champion chaser. I loved him all last season. I was lucky to have a sitting with Willies one morning as well. Beautiful horse, but he's class. He's the one.
He's the one. Jesus, you can't get a better post-race report than that from Barry Geraghty. Well then, I think you're a big Shishkin fan as well, Barry, so obviously he's going to be Shishkin's main challenger come March and the champion chase. Get off the fence. Who would you rather be with at this stage, given all that we know on the basis that we haven't seen Shishkin and then we've seen that performance from Energumene? Who would you rather be riding right now?
Well, and Shishkin is a gorgeous horse, and he's done everything brilliantly all last season, and he was a good winner of the Arkle. But no, Energumene, how he jumps and travels, he to me is in that kind of sprinter sacra. He's on the edge of scary, the real deal.
Love it. And Tony, what do you echo those thoughts? Anything to add?
Yeah, I'd probably be more Shishkin, to be honest. Very impressed.
We'll have a favour, Tony, will we?
Indeed we will. Yeah, they have to get there first, but indeed we will. I'd probably more Shishkin. The two things I take away with Shishkin is his supreme performance was unbelievable with everything going wrong, and the way his Arkle form is working out. He has the Cheltenham form, which Energumene doesn't have. But it is setting up, and hopefully they will get there. Like, it was the race we were looking forward to last year in the Arkle. In this year's championship, I think Shishkin, while he was absent over the weekend, the Captain Guinness finishing up the backside of the two Nichols horses just said to me, right, this Arkle form is the job. It's setting up for the two of those having a proper clash. But yeah, it's going to be quite tight again for Shishkin to be there. I don't think we're going to come on to that at some point. But I actually had a look at some of the Nicky Henderson stats there. I know people are wondering, is he getting a bit windy and running his horses a bit less? I look back at I think the database I was using, I think went back as far as his last 45 Cheltenham winners or something like that, and he actually hasn't really changed his approach that much. They all kind of had an average of, I think, about 2.5 runs a season. So maybe he's not running the races people might like, but he runs them kind of the same amount. And he has had, I think, 7 occasions where he prepped a horse for Cheltenham off the back of just one run that won. Bobsworth Gold Cup was one, the Triumph Hurdle winner Pentland Hills, Riverside Theatre won, the Ryanair. So yeah, Altior won a champion chase as well. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be tight. Is he going to be able to get 1 or 2 runs into him? It might just be one, but he has the track record of having done that.
Love that. You see, I haven't heard that anywhere else. That is absolutely fascinating. So we've got Barry with Energumene and Tony clearly sticking with Shishkin at this point, but there's so much more of the season to unfold before we get there. And obviously, like you said, Tony, the champion chase was the big talking race of the festival, and then it all just fell apart with days to go last year. So until they all line up at the tapes, that's when we'll really be celebrating. Let's move on. Let's go back to Punchestown and focus in on Ferny Hollow, obviously making his chase debut. This horse who's clearly got his quirks, but ultimately is incredibly talented. Barry, let's start with you again. What did you make of his chase debut?
Yeah, his jumpment got better as he went on. He was better over the last 3 or 4 fences than he was at any point during the race. But he at times he'd rush in, he'd get in tight. He was flying his fences, bending his back the wrong way, if you like. Instead of making a nice arch and a shape over his fence, he was heading the air. To me, he wasn't slick and quick. Has the engine, as I say, but I'm not just so sure about the technique. And albeit he will improve for that run, that technique comes under pressure when you get to the top level. So for me, the horse I can't wait to see, who had a brilliant technique over a hurdle and I think will be really good over a fence, is Appreciated. He's obviously he bolted up in the Supreme, but what he can do over fence possibly, I'd say could be an awful lot better than what you saw with Ferny Hollow.
You'll look forward to seeing him. Tony, you were at Punchestown on Sunday. What did you make of Ferny Hollow's performance? Did you like him in the paddock? He's obviously, I worry about him. He's clearly got his sort of, I don't want to say quirk, but he's not the most straightforward temperament-wise. I don't get the impression.
Yeah, I'd be an absolutely terrible paddock judge. I wouldn't even try to make a stab at that, to be honest with you. And what I'd see at the racetrack would be fairly poor too. I'd be wait to get home and have a look at the replay. Yeah, I like what Barry's saying there. It was just it was fine. They took out 3 fences down the back, which might have helped him as well. It was a slow pace, and he was very much in the right spot. Leopardstown at Christmas, if he heads that route, will be a totally different test, especially if Gordon Elliott's 4-year-old filly is in the field. That may not be certain, judged on his comments after Saturday's win. But if she's pouring it on out front, putting his jumping on the pressure, it might be a different conversation. I'm just not really a fan of this horse. I can't really say what it is about him. I don't like it. Maybe getting beaten in a couple of his first bumper starts. I genuinely don't like when Mullins horses are beaten in their early bumper starts, because it's the good ones basically always win. I suppose from the point of view that he has only had one start over obstacles and a point to point, should I say, prior to Sunday. So, you know, the inexperienced thing is worth pointing out. I actually thought Noel Meade's horse was quite unlucky in third, because it was such a slow pace. He kind of got shuffled back at 4 out, and then he got badly hampered enough after 3 out. He finished just as quick as Ferny Hollow, the Devil's coachman. So yeah, his jumping wasn't wonderful, but I definitely thought he could have finished a little bit closer than he did.
Interesting, I like that. Not quite a tracker horse, but one to keep an eye on all the same. Obviously, Willie Mullins had a great weekend in some areas, and then a couple of horses, well, a few horses disappointing. Ellie May over here, Shakan obviously, which we'll come to in due course, but I suppose one of the biggest disappointments on paper anyway will have been Kilcrut's defeat down at Cork, 14-1 on. I think he ended up going off in the end, but post-race Willie didn't seem too deflated, or not as deflated as his price suggested anyway. And Barry, you're keen to point out that you don't think that the winner was a fluke anyway. What did you make of that performance from Kilcrut?
Yeah, Kilcrut, well, you couldn't fault anything he did. He was there if he was good enough. He missed the third last a little bit, but there was no excuse. He was beaten fair and square. I'd say the winner is a smart horse, and they're a good bit clear of the third. So I got beaten in a 1-14 shot myself one day with Zayner. So it's not unusual. I know it is unusual, but it's not that it never happens. So Kilcrut, it's a wait and see. Maybe he just wants further, but I'd say he might have ran into a smart horse.
Further, just a quick line, would you expect him, are you seeing him as a Ballymore horse or an Albert Bartlett horse at this stage? I suppose more evidence needed, would it be right now?
He'd be a more Albert Bartlett if he didn't have the pace to make more of a race of that over 2 around Cork on soft ground. I wouldn't see him having the pace necessarily to win the Neptune or the Ballymore. He'd be better off with me looking longer and go for Albert Bartlett on that evidence.
Okay, and then just sticking with Willie Mullins' hurdlers, Barry, and sticking with you, Dysart Dynamo, you were impressed with him in Cork as well, were you?
Yeah, he won well, really good, jumped well, travelled smart, did everything nicely, and he couldn't have won any better than he did, but he's 15 lengths clear of Lucky Tenor, who was beaten 15 lengths in an average maiden in Limerick in his previous run. So you can only take it on face value. He was impressive, he did everything well, but he didn't have to beat an awful lot, so you'll have to see him against better company to get a real line on him.
Yeah, okay, we'll put that on the back burner for the time being. And Tony, Concertista, you were pleased with her, obviously making her chase debut. You liked her performance, Tony?
I did like her performance. I thought she was a square peg in a round hole now yesterday. I thought I was asking a lot of her now to go 2 miles. First time out against race fit horses that had shown decent jumping ability. Never really been totally convinced she likes soft ground. So I thought it was a really good performance. Most interesting thing about this, herself and Energumene basically did the same overall time, or very, very similar. But she was 7 seconds quicker than him from 4 out, which is again just mad distances. Now that part of that is because Notebook took Energumene on down the back, but it's also to give her a hell of a lot of credit, because he's the second favourite for the champion chase, and she's a first time out mare that probably wants further. So I would give her a hell of a lot of credit for that. Her season kind of ended at a low ebb last year with the Punchestown and Cheltenham disappointments, but she actually really has a hell of a record at Cheltenham when you look at it. One a wide margin win and 2 narrow defeats. Where she goes to next will be interesting. The only entry she has at the moment is Limerick at Christmas. Willie Mullins obviously won that race with Colreevy last year. I don't know, there's really heavy ground suitor, but if it wasn't too bad, I think she'd be very interesting. I thought her jumping wasn't pitch perfect, but then Magic Days was testing it out for her from the front. I think she'd be a lot better now up and trip. Her jumping looks safe to me. She seems to have a bit of size about her. Yeah, really liked her performance. Although look, it's already in the Cheltenham market and then some. But if she was to take on a very vaunted gelding here at home in a Grade 1, I think she'd be interesting.
Oh, very interesting. And viewers, We've covered Punchestown and Cork in a bit of detail there, but what do you guys think? We want to hear from you, so comments in the box below. If you're watching on YouTube, comments there, comments on Twitter, Facebook, you know the drill. We do look at them all and we do get involved. So yeah, let us know what you've made of the action over the weekend. Without any further ado, let's crack straight on to Sandown, because of course the big race there was the Tingle Creek on Saturday. Greaneteen winning it for Bridie Frost and Paul Nicholls, a 12th win in the race for Paul Nicholls, which is pretty incredible. But of course, all of that was slightly missed, it fell in the shadow of Bridie Frost, shall we say, because she's the big story of the week, isn't she? She's going through a pretty tricky time of it, and then she comes and does that in a Grade 1 race on a 10-1 shot on the day. A pretty incredible performance. Let's dissect the race first, Barry. Is the winner a champion chase horse?
I would have thought not. I'd have him placed in the champion chase. He's beaten 20 lengths in the Holland Gold Cup. I know he might have needed to run, but really good horses have a tendency to make themselves known in lesser companies. So Captain Guinness is within 3 lengths of him. That to me would throw as many question marks as anything. I just have it as a good race, but not a vintage race. Bryony was the woman though. She was brilliant, and especially with the week she'd had. She dropped him in, she let him jump and travel at his own pace, did everything right, produced him at the right time. It was just a beautiful ride to watch, and it was a good performance by the horse to beat the opposition, but he'll meet an awful lot stronger come Cheltenham with Shishkin and Energumene, unless they don't turn up. And like that as well, Shakin Pursois has been to England now twice in 12 months and he hasn't turned up on either occasion. Whether that's just coincidental, but for me it's his trips away. I know there's talk that he was sore behind or whatever, but he was never going, he was never taking Patrick, and it was the same with Paul in the champion chase. He was never able to dictate the champion chase the way he would normally. He was giving him a squeeze to go forward on a slow pace in Cheltenham, and in Sandown Patrick gave him a squeeze at the fence away from the stands and he had to reach for it, so it was never happening for him. So you'd have to question the strength of the race, but a good performance especially by Bryony, and the winner, he deserves credit, but as I say, champion chase I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I might come back to the winner in just a minute, but just sticking with you, Barry, and focusing in on Bryony and sort of the mental state of mind. I know she's spoken about it at length because obviously she's so open when discussing all of these things. But look, she is having an incredibly tough time of it off the track, and yet and it's not just Greaneteen either, it's Frodon last month and other good winners in between. She's been riding at a really high strike rate, just even day to day, week by week here in the UK. And look, she's second jockey to Paul Nicholls. She's getting excellent opportunities. But to be able to sort of put what's happening off the track to one side and come and deliver a ride like that, despite all the pressures that is going on around her, from your own personal experience, did you ever sort of have to put any, personal issues or troubles or what's going on out of the saddle to one side and really focus in on a race? Or does that sort of come naturally to a jockey? Just talk us through the mindset.
I think it comes naturally to some. Some deal better with it than others, and Bryony proved on Saturday how well she deals with it, because I don't think there's anyone who's had as hard a week as she would have had this week in racing, and to come out and to give a perfect ride as she did. So it takes massive credit to her. You're going to rush decisions if you're a little bit hazy and a little bit foggy, but she said in an interview when she came in, and I suppose if you think back to Timmy Murphy's book and people like that who had troubled times in their lives, that you're at your most peaceful in a race because it just takes your full concentration. You can't have any percentage of your mind distracted to what's been happening during the week. You're just completely in the zone. The whole place could be burning down around you, but you're in your race, you're doing what you do, you have these split-second decisions to make, and you can't afford to have your mind anywhere else, only what you're doing. And Bryony, she executed that brilliantly, and as I mentioned earlier, it was as good a ride as you would ever see. It was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo your thoughts. And viewers, we will in time, I guess, probably cover the Bryony Frost and Robbie Dunn case when that's all played out and we have a verdict. I think it's only right and fair that we hear both sides of the story. And so we haven't got an offence section this week because we might have wanted to speak about that bullying case in the offence section, but we're just going to park that for the time being and maybe cover it at a later date. So we're not just ignoring it, but we just think it's only right that both sides of the story are heard. Let's focus back in, Tony, on the Tingle Creek and the result as a whole. Greaneteen winning, Shakan disappointing. Who was your horse to take out of it, Tony?
I just praise the trainer again. He has a habit. I'm not going to say winning Grade 1s with ordinary horses, that would be ridiculous, but winning Grade 1s with horses that aren't tip-top Grade 1 horses, he just does it time and again. I think it was one of the Dixon brothers pointed this out last year after he'd won one, but I just did a bit of digging there this evening. Look, he's won Grade 1s with very good horses in recent times, the Clan des Oboes and the Politologues of the world, but I'm just going to list you some of these since 2015, like Kel Destan, Dynamite Dollars, Diego Charmil, Black Horton, San Benedetto, Orving, Adrian de Pont, all yours. I actually have no idea even who the last horse was, to be honest. Like, they've all won Grade 1s for Nickel since 2015. It's all recent.
That's mad.
So it's Greaneteen is a bit better than that now, but it is a fair achievement to just keep doing it, getting them into the right spots. Maybe other horses are needing a run, spotting something that's up with an opponent that maybe this isn't going to be their day, and just doing it over and over again. Yeah, I know it's not the massive Cheltenham Festival winners that he would have had in the past, but it's a fine way to keep the show on the road.
Yeah, I think what I was so impressed by and what struck me again after the Tingle Creek win is kind of your point, Tony, but kind of that target trainer angle with Paul Nicholls. When he plots a race for a horse, it can be weeks, months, maybe even 12 months in advance. I mean, he rarely misses. Throwed on at Down Royal, fit for his life that day, like it was his Gold Cup. Greaneteen here obviously had the prep run in the Holden Gold Cup and then comes here to the Tingle Creek, a track he loves. Just when he sort of plots them out and has one race in mind for those maybe not quite top notchers, but they need their day in the sun and they're going to win a Grade 1, he just rarely misses, right?
Yeah, and it's fantastic for the owners too, because they're getting a Grade 1. Like, I'm sure that, well, maybe they don't, but I'm sure they enjoy it much more than finishing 5th in a Cheltenham Grade 1,
I'm sure, yeah.
Feeling sorry for themselves a little bit afterwards, and maybe we left that one behind, and there's other trainers would do that, but he seems able to just get them into the right spots where they are actually able to win.
And just one last question to you, Tony, about Shakan. I know there were kind of excuses and Barry's touched upon them, and same at Cheltenham, but there's a few pundits out there might just call him a flat track bully. Do you think he can ever, do you think we'll see him operate over here in the UK, or do you think he's at his best at Leopardstown or somewhere in Ireland, essentially?
I think Punchestown's his best. I think visually his two best performances have been at Punchestown, the Novice Chase win and the win there just back in April. I'm not so sure about the run in the UK thing. Yeah, it's only 2 stars and if he's sore behind. One thing about Shakan is he is old. Like, he's rising 10 for a 2-mile chase. You can argue like he's only at 14 runs, but he's been in training all that time. I believe like he never really had any major setback. He was always just small niggly stuff. So there's miles on the clock. Even if there's not miles on the track, if you like. Like, Willie Munn's isn't easy on horses. We do know that. Like, they're going to be kept busy. Like, so. Yeah, it's he has the penchant for throwing in the odd bad run, lost races maybe that he should have won, like Champion Chase last year, and like a Plutarch's beating him over 2 miles, which like really he shouldn't have been doing that. But yeah, I think trainer is of such ability that you'd expect to get him back to win in Grade 1s, but Champion Chase would be, I think, extremely optimistic.
Okay. All taken on board, notes taken. Let's move on to Edwardstone winning the Novice Chase there. A bit of a surprise winner to some, with third time lucky, kind of setting his stall out pretty early and then not coming home as some would have expected. Barry, what did you make of the Novice Chasers at Sandown?
Yeah, I thought it was a good performance by Edwardstone. He was the only horse who could jump and travel with third time lucky, and maybe third time lucky didn't jump as well as he has done, but that might be a reflection on the pace he was going because of the opposition being stronger. He hadn't beaten anything special, albeit he was very impressive in his previous 2 wins in Cheltenham, but take nothing away from the winner. It was a good performance. He hung on to third time lucky's coattails, if you like, and he was the only horse who could pick him up, and he galloped to the line. It was a good solid performance. He will meet better. He was a good herder. He got to a mark of 150, I think. So it'll be interesting to see when he steps into better company. But I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, appreciated for me is the one for the Arkle. And when he meets a horse like that, you'll know where you stand with him then, maybe.
Yeah, I was impressed with Edwardstone. I thought he probably is not going to get the credit he deserves, but he looks like he's going to be a better chaser than he was hurdler. And as you've touched upon, Barry, he's already I think he's 150 hurdler. So looking forward to seeing him next. But Barry, let's focus in on the really big talking horse of the day at Sandown. Never mind Bryony Frost, never mind Greaneteen, 12 Tingle Creeks for Paul Nicholls. It's not about that, is it? It's all about Constitution Hill. All joking aside, looked an absolute weapon in his novice hurdle for the Nicky Henderson team. But we're obviously focusing in on you here, Barry, because take it away, please. Tell us the Constitution Hill story.
So we bought Constitution Hill with Warren Ewing as a foal, and he would have been here until the summer of 2020 or the autumn of 2020. So a year ago he went up to Warren to go into training as a pointer, and Michael Buckley bought him off us at the Doncaster sale last May, and hence then he went to 7 Barrows. So I told Mike for about 6 months beforehand that he wants to buy this fella, so he thankfully he agreed and he bought him at Doncaster. But he was a very, very laid back horse, and so much so our kids were riding him here when he was a 3-year-old, which would be very unusual for a racehorse to be used as a pony, if you like. So they were riding him around here. He was quiet as a mouse, and his work was always laid back, but as soon as you pressed the button there was that instant gear change. So Nicky couldn't find the button for a little while, but when he did find it, he realised what I was talking about.
Like a lot. And so obviously you clearly love the horse and had plenty of faith in him, but were even you relatively, pretty impressed with the performance he put in at Sandown? Because I was. Yeah, no, I was. I had big hopes for him on his work, everything he'd done. Nicky was, for the last few weeks or months, he was telling me, he could see what I mean. But he jumped the last and he was pulling 5 or 6 clear, and then when he hit the line, I'm waiting for the second horse to come along, and he was no mug, and he was 14 lengths behind him. It seemed forever before he'd get to the line, and it was another good bit back to Outlaw Peter, I think it is, that was third. So he a good horse in second and a reasonable horse in third, and they were, I think, 14 and 17 lengths away, and he went to the line on the bridle. So he's definitely a very smart one, and I look forward to following him for the future. Now look, clearly you were very impressed with John Bon when we spoke about him, and then now it looks like Constitution Hill would be going to the Supreme as well as potentially John Bon. Obviously lots to sort of, still a long road to go till March, but is it the Supreme that you'd be focusing in on with this horse at this stage, despite the fact that you've touched upon that sort of laid back attitude? But clearly when you press the button there's plenty of speed there as well.
Yeah, and speaking to Nicky after the race, he said he wouldn't dream of going anywhere but 2 mile at the minute. But he is so laid back you could step him up and trip because he wouldn't be taking a pull over further. So it's a wait and see. But Nicky has ran multiples in the Supreme. I was second in Spirit Sun with Sprinter Sacra, and third I was second on Vanna 2 maybe, or third on Vanna 2 and something else was second. So it wouldn't be unusual for Nicky to line up 2 fancied horses in what he'd feel is the right race for the horse. So at the minute it looks like the Supreme would be his target.
Brilliant. An exciting one for Barry to be cheerleader for, and a lot of other people have got stuck into him as well, because I think after the race at Sandown, I think he was sort of a 10 to 1, 8 to 1 shot for the Supreme, and then that all went very, very quickly, and I think he's now 5 to 1 for the Supreme, just a point bigger than Jean Bon, and 4 to 1. So plenty of water to go under the bridge, but lots to look forward to, and we will be Team Constitution Hill on this show, clearly because of that story. Barry, quick word with Protektorat, please, up at Aintree. Devastating performance from him. Race slightly fell apart. It felt a little bit, but he couldn't have been more impressive. And I thought it was a very clever ride by Bridget Andrews to sort of let the horse in the end bowl on and use his stride and his jump after he sort of was so strong for the first part of the race.
Yeah, no, it was a really good performance. Native River, he set the pace, and you could say Native River mightn't be the horse he was, but he was 30 lengths fourth in the Gold Cup last year, so he still retains a certain level of ability. It was his first run of the year, and there's probably improvement due on him there, but you'd have to be very taken by Protektorat. I thought Bridget gave him a brilliant ride because he was keen all the way. He was still taking a pull down the back, and she was managing to keep a lid on him. He jumped brilliantly. She was using her jump and getting him back in to get a bit of cover off Native River. She let him roll on then in the straight, and for a horse to have ran as keen as he did, if there was a chink in his armour, he probably would have died of death in the straight, if you like, so I think he did really well. He's only a 6-year-old, so there's still potential for improvement between here and Cheltenham. So no, I think the English have a Gold Cup contender with Protektorat.
A Gold Cup contender for the English. Hurrah! Thank goodness. Tony, over to you for a quick mention for Gordon Elliott's 7-timer. Was, again, probably a little bit lost in the news over the weekend because there were so many other stories bouncing around the place. But obviously in that 7-timer and in Gordon's good run of it, Riviere de Tel is a horse that you've sort of been flagging up for a little while now, and she went and won. Was it her third on the bounce this weekend?
Yeah, third on the bounce, very impressive again. She got out in front, she settled, she jumps very well. Good time again at the weekend. Just a dominant performance, really. Look, she didn't beat an awful lot, but she's doing it very well. Just read afterwards that he decided to run her at Navan because the owners aren't around at Christmas. I hope that doesn't mean that she doesn't run at Christmas now, because I think it'd be a pity to miss out that may be misreading the quotes now, but it would be a pity not to run her in the Leopardstown race because she'd be getting the massive allowances, and it'd really be a good test for Ferny Hollow and whatever else comes up against her. You can tell how good a form the yard is in now, and he's getting Commander Fleet to win a handicap like that. Like, he's just been out of form for a long time. To get a win in a 100 grand race was excellent going there. Look, we know the story with Gordon Elliott this time of year. He always has the horses ready for the month of November. Down Ryle, kicking into Fairy House and all these Navan meetings. And especially so this year, look, he had a point to prove it. He really wanted to make the hot start. That comes at a little bit of a price. I'm just talking purely from a punting point of view, and what you're thinking is going to happen into Christmas and post Christmas. I don't think it's going to have any impact on Christmas. He had plenty of winners at Christmas. Just bearing in mind Dublin Racing Festival last year, he was only a bit player in the Dublin Racing Festival last year. I think Quilixios was the only one of his top horses he would have run there. So is that going to be the case again? Is that going to be another, Mullins winning a lot of races again type of thing? He'll peak for Cheltenham, and then Punchestown wouldn't really be his meeting. It's just something to bear in mind. They're not always going to be in this good of form. It does ebb and flow. We know the kind of the structure he tends to take to the season. So just if you're looking at those horses the next time out, they're coming off an impressive win. They were operating at a time when he was in particularly good order.
Yeah, like that a lot. Notes worth taking just for further down the road. Let's move on to have a quick look at the week ahead. Obviously plenty of entries flying around. We've got Doncaster and Cheltenham over here. Not much racing in Ireland. But Barry, you've had a good look at Cheltenham over the weekend, Friday, Saturday. And actually there's quite a few horses that have caught your eye. Who are you looking forward to? Who's sort of in your top few to look forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I thought Rilo was creeping into the Ladbrokes Trophy when he fell down the back straight, so he's an entry on Friday. I think he'll be of interest. Also, Sporting John is back in a handicap hurdle again with a £5 penalty for winning last time, so he's looking like he's potentially a stayer's horse, so he has to win this if he's going to get into that grade, so he'll be definitely one to watch on Friday. On Saturday, I thought Porticello in the juvenile hurdle. I liked him in Weatherby. His jumping should improve a lot for that, but he's a good solid staying type, and I think Cheltenham, this is going to be running the new course, so it's this bigger, stiffer track if you like, so I think that's going to suit him, and I think that will also suit Adagio, who could possibly meet Scu Royal, will be having his 4th run in 8 weeks, so he's had a busy autumn, but I would definitely like Adagio, Porticello, Sporting John and Enredo.
A few names to take good note of there. Hopefully a few of them show up. Are you coming over for it, Barry, in your Cheltenham ambassadorial role?
No, I actually have the weekend off, so I'm going to a wedding at the weekend, so no, I'll have to pass it this weekend.
How will they cope without you?
I'm not sure.
Tony, what are you looking forward to at the weekend? Anything in a couple of the big races at Cheltenham?
Yeah, nothing major. I'm taking the kids to see Santa on Sunday because there's no Irish racing on, so that's kind of going to be the height of my activity.
Did you take them to Punchestown Sunday just been?
No, because they would have been fairly miserable on the journey home because all I was doing was backing losers. I wouldn't inflict that on them bad and all as I am. The big race at Cheltenham on Saturday, look, it's not something that I studied in depth, but I do think Dostal Phil probably has a race in him off this type of mark. He was running well at Punchestown last season, in the race of Staring for Longe. Won. Now, he was never probably going to beat a Staring for Longe in light of what he did at the weekend, but he fell and he was going quite well. Unseated, he's going quite well, and I thought he shaped well in the Paddy Power race last month. Protectors come out and given that a little bit of a boost since. So yeah, I think he'd have a little bit of a chance there. Although the market knows that, but he should run well.
Okay, I think Laylor, if he turns up, the team seem pretty positive about him at the weekend as well. I'll be looking forward to that. Let's rattle through tracker time because we are running out of time. Tracker horses from the week just been. I will go first, and my horse is Doyen Breed. Put him in your tracker. He got beat by Bushy Park up at Kelso in the novice handicap chase. The staying handicap chase up there, as per last week as well. I'm just sticking with these long distance staying chasing types, but Doyen Breed for the Sandy Thompson operation. Basically, he just couldn't go with Bushy Park, and Bushy Park jumped brilliantly, and as a result, the favourite Doyen Breed just couldn't go with him. His jumping let him down, but if they can get that right, and I think Sandy Thompson will get that right with him, he still looks very well handicapped off his current mark. He was an okay hurdler, but I think he's going to be a much better chaser, and he could still be well handicapped. So keep him in your tracker, please. Barry, I'm not entirely sure who yours is. Have you got one for this week?
Yeah,
you can't put Constitution Hill. You can't put Constitution Hill in there.
No, I won't. Okay, I'm going Vera Verta. She was second to Abrige de Sai in the Juvenile Maiden on Sunday in Cork. First one over hurdles. Jumped well, but was a little bit big and green at times. Green in the straight. I think plenty of improvement. And the winner, who was 4.5 lengths behind Lunar Power, who was second to Fildor, who's favourite for the triumph. So a good line of form there. So I think there's improvement in Vera Verta. So I want to keep an eye on it maybe.
Okay, and Tony, your tracker horse, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bally William Boy. He was third in that 3-mile handicap hurdle at Navan on Saturday. It's kind of trip related with him. He said his last couple of runs at 3 miles, I don't think he's been getting home. He got a ground saving ride on Saturday, taking a bit of a grip, but he come there 2 out and it looked like he was going to nearly win it. Starting to fade a bit at the last where he made a mistake, but I think back to 2.5 will suit him. His better form is all around 2.5, and he hasn't got a chance to run the handicap yet at 2.5. There's a couple of options for him probably in the next month. There's another race at Navan there, pre-Christmas meeting there, I think a graded 2.5 mile handicap, and there'll be a race of Punchestown on New Year's Eve. Be hoping he'll turn up in one of those two.
Brilliant. Tracker time wraps up proceedings as always. Thank you very much, Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. It has been a pleasure. We've rattled through all the big talking points, and we'll be doing the same next Tuesday as well. So we look forward to you joining us again. And before we go, actually, don't forget, hit subscribe on the At The Races YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode of Off The Fence. Give us a like on Facebook, give us a like on Twitter, give us a retweet, and all feedback is welcome. We want to hear from you viewers, but thank you very much for watching. That was Off The Fence.